Hey there, everyone, my royal family. How are you? How are you? This is Zion Jones, and thank you for rocking with Zion. Tonight is mashed potatoes night. It's all about relationships. And I'm so glad that, I'm having this opportunity to actually to share with some sisters and brothers about this most important topic in all of our lives is about relationships. So I'm going to wait here a little bit and try to get some people on here so that we can talk about relationships. And as you know, that relationships is so important, whether you're relating to a spouse or you are in the midst of getting, trying to have a relationship as far as engagement, even with your parents or whatever. These principles apply to every relationship in your life. And you remember the most important thing in relationships is actually the process. The process. Are you willing to go through a process to create and have better relationships? As you know, my philosophy is making the mashed potato, right? And so, of course, you know how we do it. Okay, we make that potato. We start off getting that bag of potatoes, and always like to say you want to start off with fresh potatoes in any relationship. Start off with a fresh. If there's any rotten potatoes in your bag, I say to you, get rid of those potatoes before you actually get into another relationship with someone. You don't want to bring your baggage into another relationship, because guess what? It's going to be a new pouring, a new sowing. It's going to be a whole different ball game when you have relationships with new people, because everyone has different ways, experiences, personalities, and you just want to be able to understand that person one-on-one without trying to compare them to anyone else that's in your life, right? So what's the first thing that we do with those potatoes? We peel them, right? And let me tell you, I say that peeling is a very important part, because that's when you're learning about someone. That's when you're getting to understand, wow, this person is different. This person might be maybe more sensitive than you, need more care than you, maybe need to be more trusting than you. You never know, but really we all have to understand that relationships are very important, because our most important relationship in life is our relationship with God. And if we know that we put him first, because he said love him with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, that means if you have that relationship with him first, then you will know how to actually have those relationships with your neighbor. And that's why that's the second commandment: love your neighbor as you love yourself. Because in you loving the Most High and building relationship with him and knowing his principles and knowing his ways and living his laws, you will learn to love yourself, because you'll start seeing yourself as he, which is the Christ in you. So understand these processes. And a lot of our relationships out in the world right now are being broken. And why? Because a lot of us are getting offended by things where, and that's what happens. Hurting people hurt people. And we can hurt one another by something we say, by something we do, and sometimes you do have to cut some relationships off, because they are violating your spirit or your space and what you believe in. And those are the things that you have to be understanding and say, you know what, this relationship is worth keeping, versus this relationship is not good for me at this time. And you have to understand the balance in that, because relationships, of course, any relationship you have, majority of them, someone has said something to offend you, maybe hurt your heart, or you maybe did not like, but guess what? You worked through it and you loved each other. And I call that like the peeling. You get to know each other's likes, dislikes, and when you care about someone, and I always use these processes as parallel with our relationship with God, because when you have a relationship with a person, just like you would have with God. I want you to understand this. Please understand this. This is so important to know that God has feelings too. He has feelings too. So when you know that he has feelings, understand that you have feelings, right? And you're in this relationship with someone. Now, when that person disrespects you or violates you, or you don't like something that that person does, what do? You hurt, and then if a person continuously do something you ask them not to do, and you feel like, okay, this person is disrespecting me, because it's just like God gives us grace, right? He gives you grace. And he says, okay, you know what? I give you grace, but then you keep doing it over and over and over again. And it's like, okay, like God has no feelings. He's like, I have grace upon you. But if you really love someone, just like in that your own relationship with your spouse or someone you're engaged with, or even a friend, if they keep violating you and hurting you and really disobeying the law that you have put up to say, this hurts, you know what I mean? Then what are you going to do? You're going to actually, either you're going to retaliate, or you're going to be like, you know what, you can't be my friend anymore, things of this nature. So these things are important to understand the parallel. You want to put in relationships, your Christ-like self, meaning that sometimes you be in a relationship where someone doesn't give back to you the same way. And maybe they might be different in their giving back. But it's important for us to pick healthy relationships. When you need someone to be there to love you, any relationship should be an enhancement, something that you can grow from, learn from, and most of all, be loving. We all have to be the one to love. I always say you don't have to go looking for love, because guess what? Love is God. And when you have him, you are love, and love will gravitate itself to you. So remember this. When you get in those processes, you start peeling that potato, right? And let me tell you, those don't feel good, because you're learning someone, where they might be a sensitive in some area. You might think like, it's okay, and they might receive you a way that you don't even think that you are projecting. You have to learn all these things, but we must take this account. If the person is not violating your spirit and who you are as a person, and it's just things that you dislike, and that you can always too, I think it's very important that we look at ourselves. We need to look at ourselves and say, you know what is it about me that I can do better? Because so many times in relationships, we want to point at the other person, or we want to change them to be the way we want them to be, instead of accepting them the way that they are. Now, if you can't accept a person the way they are in that relationship, then you have to say, well, you know what, this relationship, I don't know how far it can go. We can't go in thinking we can change someone, but one person, and that's ourselves. Going to any relationship should be anybody changing, and you looking for a change should be the change in you. Am I correct? So, okay, that peeling comes off. We're learning each other. I know what you like, you know what you dislike. And sometimes when someone dislikes something, they'll keep doing it again, maybe, and you may not meaning to do it. And then you think you got one part covered, and there's another part. So there you go. You got that cutting up that potato, right? Now you peel it. Now you're cutting it up. That cutting process, I'm telling you, that cutting process can be something else, right? And that means there's some chopping off. Now that we learned about each other, and I know that you don't like this specific thing, say for instance, if I know that I make a particular dish, or and my spouse say, well, you know what, I don't like that particular dish or whatever, I would, probably cut it out of what I'm cooking, because I know he doesn't like that. And he might be someone who eats a certain kind of way. Maybe he's a vegan or vegetarian, whereas the other person eats meat, so it's changing in there. Not so much that, I have to change the other person, but it's beautiful, because you know what, if you've noticed any relationships, you put them together, they're totally different from one another. This person, like peanut butter, with nuts, and this one don't. It is like you put it together. But understanding when God puts the female and male together, it's a perfection in that. And we have to learn that unity, even though there's some cutting off and that person's changing. And usually that change is the benefit or the best in you. I realize if I'm in a relationship, it's like, how can I change me? You know what I mean? Do I need to be more patient? Is God working on my patience to be more patient with people? You know what I'm saying? Am I to be a listener, to listen more, not talk more? What can I do? And then if it's something that I'm not receiving in that relationship, then I should become that what I would like to see, because if that changed me to be in someone else, only God can change the heart of a man. But guess what? You can be that example. Be the example, because you know what? When that time comes, like God says, we sow the seed, someone else nourishes, gives it the water, and when it's time, God will give the increase. Am I right about it? So then, okay, now you got the chopping and so forth, and that water is boiling on the side, waiting for you to throw them hard potatoes in there, and then you throw those hard potatoes in that water, and guess what happens? Oh boy, it's boiling. I mean, that time when you get upset, that person just get on your nerve, that last nerve where you can feel that fire, coming up in you. Now that's another thing that you have to learn how to discipline. How are you going to act when it's boiling? Are you going to be angry? Are you going to do angry and sin not? Or are you going to be angry and hurt that person back? Or when you have that anger in yourself, what are you going to do with it? Is it going to transfer over to you being like a very hurtful person to them, or having laughed towards that person, or being vengeful with that person? How are you going to act when it's boiling within your household, when that heat is going, when things are difficult, or when it seems like you guys are not agreeing with everything, and that person really hurts you and you don't like it? That boiling process, what are you doing with that process? Are you a rageful person? These things, and then you think about when God said that we would be pure as gold, because why? Gold goes through a process, and that means the process doesn't feel good all the time. It's never going to feel good. You know what I mean? Any relationship you're going to be in, any growing relationship that you're going to be in, you're going to have some trying times. You're going to have some challenging times. There's no two people that's going to think alike all the time. But through the test of the trial, with the peeling things off in this relationship and the chopping and cutting things up in this relationship off of me, and then going into the boiling part with you, you got me really hot, and I don't really like this, and I don't like the way you feel, and I don't think that you're respecting me, you know what I'm saying? And then sometimes people in the boiling process, they can't handle the boil, so they's like, well, I don't want to be your friend anymore, or I want a divorce, and all this heat that comes and rises, and you're making these, it could be a mistake too, because just imagine the relationship you got with God and how he boils in his spirit because he loves you. But at the same time, God is about judgment. And he said he expects something out of his relationship with you. He expects you to show him love just like he loves you. That's why he said, those who love me keep my commandments. Those who love me, when you see them, you see myself. Because if he's your father, you should resemble him. Your ways should be his ways. You know what I'm saying? You should be Christ-like, like his son. If you're his son, just like Christ, you should be Christ-like. If you're his daughter, you should be Christ-like. So it's very important in all the processes that you have in your relationships. And trust me, relationship is about relating. And relating, we all don't have the same language. We learn about each other. If you love someone, you want to please them. So you want to know, you spend time with them. How are you going to have a relationship and you don't spend time with that person, right? So how can you have a relationship with God if you don't spend time with God? We have to spend that time with God in order for us to really have that relationship with him, you know, and understand that, hey, we want to please him. So to please him is what? To take care of doing the things according to his word. So, okay, now you got that boiling time coming. How are you acting in the boil? That's what I want to know. Are you exuding the spirit of love, the spirit of God? Or are you just getting angry and you're spitting out venom? He said there is death in the power of the tongue, life and death. What are you doing in this boiling time? So there you go. You got all the potatoes, you and that potato, you two in that pot boiling together. What are you doing through the trying times? Those times when it seems tough, those times when, you know, you might have money and now you don't. Now you're losing things. And now, you know, we're disagreeing about what's going on with the kids. And what are you doing in those boiling times? Are you going to press on like God is pressing on in his relationship with you, saying, you know what? Trust in me, you know? Are you giving this relationship to God? So, and trust me, while you're in the boiling, sometimes people get a little bit, you know, softer sooner than the other person. Sometimes you got some hard head potatoes, I'm telling you, and it takes them a long time to get soft. And so the one that's soft don't have to be in the boiling pan anymore, right? But just remember this, even though the one that got soft and the one still in the boiling pan, because you're one, it is also still like you're still in the boiling pan. But guess what? You're outside of it being patient and being the example and showing them what you've learned while you were in the heated of that pot, of that steamy situation and circumstances. Now you can exude the example of what they need so that they can eventually catch on and come on out of the pot with you, right? And so then, you know, you're cutting up the potatoes and then you put in the butter and the seasonings in there, you know, and you know, because that means you're going to have some good times in there. And you whip them up and you whip them real good, you know. That means that, you know, there's some whippings in that situation, things you learn how to respect each other. You're learning how to communicate. You're learning how to walk together. You're learning how the oneness with each other is supposed to work so that we can be mashed into one. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a mashing to one. So you guys know the process. I mean, and I'm looking for somebody out there to make me some mashed potatoes, okay? Can we get some mashed potatoes going here? So tonight, you know, I have this special guest, which is Timothy Alexander, and I'm so excited about him coming on. And as you know, him and his beautiful wife, Karen Gatson Alexander, has been on here a couple weeks. Phenomenal, and so many things she's touched on as far as us keeping ourselves as women waiting for our husbands, you know, and how she kept herself for 4 years, and how the dynamic of her choice to do this thing, you know, finding that God has led her to her husband, you know, and in the process of that, her dating technique had changed, you know, her way of doing things had changed. Now, if we want something to change in our lives and we want different results, that just means that we need to do things a little bit different, right? I want you guys to know too, I don't know, something's wrong with my Facebook, so I can't even tell if there's anyone on or not. I can't tell if you have any comments or saying anything. And I notice it's been doing this a couple, you know, times that I've been on here. So I really can't see anything, any comments. I don't even know who's on right now, but I trust that that everyone will definitely get this word out there and share it. So invite your friends, invite them to come to hear this awesome speaking that Timothy is going to share with you guys tonight. Just in a minute, he'll be getting on here. So go ahead, invite some of your friends. Let them know, you know, it's all about relationship. You know, somebody right now might be going through a divorce. You might know someone now that's in a domestic violence relationship. You might not know someone that's hurting from a relationship that they was broken from, you know, and understand, you know, when God says, if the unbelieving husband leave, let him leave. If the unbelieving wife, leave, let her leave. You are no longer under bondage. You understand these things, you know, be free. You shouldn't put anyone before God. If someone takes someone out of your life, you should be praising God. You know, I say like this, I said, if someone takes me, leaves me around my where I'm at in a relationship, if I know that I'm doing the righteous thing unto God, then I know there's only God. God is the only one that will put a person in your life and can take a person out. He's the one that gives a great and perfect gift. When you get a wife, you better believe, and she's a good wife, you know that that's a gift from God. So we just got to be just grateful to the Most High, and just start living in the kingdom principles. The kingdom principles are so important. And like I said, I was talking about Karen, how she was wonderful. She came in, and Timothy was here last week, and he spoke, and we spoke about so many topics about relationship, and understand that Timothy did make a choice too, you know, to save himself. You know, he was tired of, you know, the results. You know, it's all about the result, right? And when the result came, you know, and let me tell you, when you do good things, good results come. You know, good results will come. You sow a tree, you know, you sow good seed, you're going to get good ground. You're going to get a good harvest, right? So he started to do that, you know, and saved himself for 8 years. And I really wanted the men to know, like, look, this is possible. You know, you want a good woman, then you sow good seed into your father and say, Father, you know, send me a good wife, you know, and you have to start by sowing seed in your relationship with God, so that when your harvest comes, you have sowed the seed of receiving a beautiful wife or a king, right? So you have to do that with your relationship with God way before she comes, And when you don't do that and we get in these relationships, guess what? Then we get what we get. I was telling someone today, I said, it's two kind of women. It's either she's going to give a man peace or she's going to be a contentious woman. Which one are you? You know, and same with the man. It's either he's going to be a king in your household or he's not, you know. And if you want kingdom quality, if you want queendom quality, guess what we do? It is so necessary to be what we would like to have. Is that right? You know, I can't sit here and say, I want this in a man and want that in a man and so forth, and yet I'm not being the queen or even abiding by the word of God that gives me instructions on how to be a good wife, right? So let us get Timothy on here, and because I am so excited. I mean, him and his wife are just so beautiful and such a good example for us. Hello?
Hi.
Hey, Timothy, how are you?
Oh, doing fine. You?
I'm well, thank you. So we got Timothy here on the line. Praise be the Most High. All right, I'm so glad to have you in here once again, Timothy. So many things that we talked about last week and so forth, and I am grateful. And I really want to expound a little bit more on these relationships. I know we've been talking about keeping yourself, waiting until you get married, you know, and really I want you to this week to expound on, you know, how it's good for a man to keep himself, the difference of you seeing versus you being in the world, choosing to do it the world way, and then when you chose to do it God's way, and let them understand the difference in that, and then we'll go into media. But go ahead, say what's on your heart.
Oh, well, let me think talk about. You know, we have to realize that when, from a godly perspective, when God made his decree on how we were supposed to go about achieving a proper balance in a relationship, then that was it. You know, of course, there's always these people that manage to skate around the God's ultimate plan, but it doesn't work that well for most people today, because we can see by the results of the poor quality of relationships, the high divorce rate and all the broken homes. When I was a child, there were a lot more intact families than there are now, and there's just a reason for that. We can't deny it. And so, following God's word and doing things correctly, right, doing the right foundation, just like it takes. There's a process of raising a baby from a baby to a child to an adult. It takes time. And most people aren't building a good foundation for their relationship because it becomes sexual too early. And its foundation is only sex. And sex is just a feeling, and sex is something to get used to. For some people, you get bored with it, the same person. So that's not a good enough foundation. Try to make a 50-year relationship on and raise children.
Yes.
And so it's important that we get back to what God's value system was if we want to have the proper results. And that's what I had to do. I had to come to terms with the fact that me doing what I wanted to do didn't serve me anymore. And I had to grow up and take responsibility for my failings and stop doing them. When you learn better, you have to do better and not continue in the way that's destructive.
Right.
And that's why it was better.
Yes. And it's such it's very much clear that a lot of us fall into that way of feeling that sex is the most important thing. Because, of course, when we were younger, no one really taught us about how relationships should go. We learned by trial and error. So what would you say, too, regarding the media and how it affects so many? Because you're known for seeing the media and looking at all the different things that's going on that's really tragic in the youth lives, and how you show the women and how they have no discretion, and how they're dressing and what they're doing. What would you say about the media and how it affects the youth and others as far as sexuality is concerned?
I mean, it's really simple. Anything you market on TV, people will buy. TV has a great track record. If you look up any type of advertising information, you can Google advertising and find out what's the most effective advertising. TV is a great legitimizer. You see on TV that that's real and that's top tier. Magazines, newspapers, billboards, nothing has the power of television. What they're doing on television is purely marketing sex. They do it from sun up to sundown, 7 days a week. They do it in kids programming. They're marketing sex. They're marketing materialism. They're marketing do as you wish, do as you want mindset. And it's overtaking society. And now people are so torqued up on the importance of sex because it makes sex look so sexy that they're losing control. And they also are losing their ability to try to align with one person because it appears that the people that are having fun are just doing their thing. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. It backfires, it's tiring, and women, in most cases, are going to find that they're going to end up alone. I say in most cases because more people are not married than are married. And we're not building those permanent bonds where when we grow older and nobody else would probably want us because we pretty much our life is spent, somebody else already has us. Listen to that statement. We grow old to the point where nobody's going to want us, and then we have to die alone instead of being with somebody when somebody already has us. If you grow old and you're with somebody, that's the process of familiarity, and you don't say, well, they're not this, not that, this is saggy, and that's too goofy, and that's too fat. You're together, and you season and you grow old together, the way people used to do. And now everybody's always chasing that perfect something, and that's somebody with just right body, and this and that, and then, the thought dries up. And there's nothing worse than keeping something until it's past its time. You ever, want something really bad, you finally get it, then all of a sudden it's useless because that piece of technology is no longer used anymore. They don't use cassette players. I don't know how nice the cassette player is. And certain clothes are out of style. You know, certain things, they run their terms, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I have, you know, it's not, you couldn't even sell it. There's some things that you couldn't even sell. You could have spent $1,000 for it, $1,500, and you couldn't even sell it. Somebody would look at it and say, wow, back in the day, that was state of the art. That would have been a really cool thing back in its day. But nobody wants a casting machine that takes a little micro cassette anymore.
Right.
But I had one that was bomb back in the day, but like, who wants that?
Play it out. Yeah.
Right. And people are becoming old, instead of old technology, they're becoming old biology. Old useless biology that nobody wants. Because they're playing their options to the end. They keep looking for something extra. Every time they find something that excites them and it doesn't work out, they're titillated by that. Now they're trying to find that, but a little bit better. But also cuts with some of that other person, that other person, that other person. After a while, they get in, for lack of a better word, the Kardashian zone, where they're always chasing something and never quite find it. At least it looks like, you know, actually did find her. But, you know, for the rest of the lot, you know, they're just here, there, and everywhere. And it's one thing if you have money and you live in a high life, but most of us are regular people. And at some point, life, gravity, poor food, weight takes its toll. You just don't have that same value. So what we need to do is we need to slow down, stop having so much fun, getting instant gratification, and figure out I'll just have sex now and enjoy myself, and then stop finding somebody I want to be with permanently. And start to say, I want to find what I really need. I want to find what I'm looking for. I'm going to slow down and be patient and make decisions from my brain and not my genitals. I'm going to find what I need. I'm going to build a permanent bond with this person. I know that my future's set. I never have to wonder if I'm going to get a phone call tonight and who I'm going out with, and you know, if I'm going to have babies, and what it's going to be like when I get old. Will I be alone, sitting there with animals, birds, whatever your fancy is? And, you know, that's not good. Most people that die in a house by themselves aren't usually that happy. The last days leading up to.
So what would you tell them too? Because you know how you have children, and I like what you said earlier. You know, when we get on these principles, see, a lot of people, we want to this is what's important, is to understand that God's law is his love for us. You know, really, because he knows what's best for us. So when he's telling us to be with one person, you know, that cuts out a lot of the baby mama drama, as they call it, you know, taking money out of your checks and having to deal with a whole nother family and a whole lot of other things, that if you just had that one person that we did it God's way, it would actually delete a lot of issues and problems that we would not have to deal with. And also even with our children, raising our children, how, you know, you raising your beautiful sons, and I love the part where you remarried and how you guys are still a beautiful family and teaching them godly principles. Now, how do you tell those out there too? Because if they're raising children, to understand that, you know, that media is really destroying, even though if you're sitting there watching, then you make your children go in the other room, how still can that affect the child? Which, you know, like you said, the majority of what we watch either has some sexual activity, homosexual activity, killing. What should they do?
Well, in this country, in the past, in my lifetime, when I was a young child, most people, especially the generation before me, my parents' generation, most of them met someone young, not married, had children inside marriage, and stayed together pretty much until they died. That was something that wasn't a far-fetched concept like it's turning into now. even in other cultures in the world today, people meet and form lifelong bonds and die together as a family, where they know their father and their father is just as relevant in their life as their mother, if not even more so, because in other cultures, the man really ruled the house. And now we've slipped into this zone where people don't believe anymore. And the media shows so many broken situations, so many people cheating, so many people just doing their thing, single parent homes, and the children don't have a lot to go from because they don't have a two parent home. They see things on television that are inappropriate, and they have no way to set a value system that's more conducive to, a lifelong bond with a partner and making a traditional family. The traditional family is slipping away into obscurity as almost something archaic, and a lot of people don't even believe in it anymore. And they think that the substitute that they have for family life is family life. There's a lot of single mothers with kids primarily, just the family, we're fine. Not really.
Right.
Because you see that reflected in the way the child doesn't make their decisions and can't bond correctly. And there's too many women that don't know which man is actually the baby's father. I mean, that almost never happens. When you're pregnant and you're not sure which one of a number of men could be the father, that is a sign that somebody's moving way too fast.
And two, I really believe what's so important, I think, for all of us, the man and the woman, because it's really time out for us to stop pointing the finger at one another and blaming each other for each other's failures. It's just accountability. We have to take accountability and stop making excuses, because we're all gone through something, and it's just being able to say, you know what, I need to take accountability and be responsible for my choices, what I do in life, So like, say, for instance, you have men, a lot of times, they're like, well, I'm only human, the way she's dressed, or, and how women can come on very strongly to a man and so forth, and just talking from the man perspective. What would you tell the men, what they need to do? I mean, let's stop making this excuse that the reason why you're committing adultery or fornication is because of the woman's fault. How do you get it back to the man to be accountable and say, you know what, not get yourself in that type of situation?
Well, first of all, if you believe in God, you have to take his foundation on God and God's word, God's principles, and live God's principles and not the principles of the media, of the television, of Satan. That is a choice to do everything you see just because everybody's doing it, just because it's the end thing to do, versus doing what God says to do. And it's back to what my foundation was. You know what, I'm not going to do this. That's when I got the results I was looking for. So, first have to stand up and accept the thing when they're going to say you're not going to do this. I actually got to the point where I knew that if I was interested in a woman and had sex with her, I wasn't going to end up marrying. Because I would have broken something I didn't want to break. Unfortunately, I didn't break it. I didn't break it for 8 years. But if I was dating someone and had crossed that line, I think that would have made everything start to deteriorate to that point. Because, I convinced myself I have to do this the right way. I have to atone for my, sins of my earlier life and get it right. Because I wanted to do it right. I wanted God's full blessing. I wanted to do it right. So what changed was I changed my mindset. I changed my values. I committed responsibly to keeping closer to God's word and not following my gentleman. That's just not wise.
Yes.
Following what feels good, what satisfies you now. I've got later to work, and then after that, I have this.
Yes.
And you have to ask yourself what's really important. Respect just because you can, or really having something real. And another thing is that people who sexually active, it is very hard for them to bond that one person the rest of his life.
Yes.
They overstimulated themselves to the point where they're hypersensitized. They need to constantly have new input, new conquest, new experiences, new people. And to be in a routine relationship, they will fail.
Yes. And you know what? I love the fact that when we come to the point, and this is really saying to everyone, when you operate in God's principles, you get different results. And of course, you know, like I said, we were born into sin, and it's so much clearer to me, even understanding being born in sin. Even as a child, you have a lot of children and youth that were actually molested at a young age. And my mom always would say that Satan is a pedophile because at these young ages, you know, of a child, they're being violated. And usually, like, you know, someone close to them, a family member, or the case may be, and then they're starting off being confused and thinking maybe, okay, it's okay. And not really having anyone to talk to because they're ashamed. I really believe this is a time that we have to come from behind the figs and hiding like our Adam and Eve did when they were ashamed, but being transparent because what we went through is not for ourselves alone. It's really for us to be a bridge for someone else to let them know and show them how they can come out of that place of shame, you know, and really starting to look at those things that we feed ourselves with, which is when you're watching a certain kind of movie, understanding if it's having sexual activity in it and it's cursing and it's drama and it's fighting and you feeling good and you think it's okay, you know, then you got to really kind of take a look at yourself and say, well, why am I so intrigued with watching these kind of things? You know, and you get some that still want to watch it and feel like they're outside of it saying, oh, that's ridiculous. And talk about it like, you know, it's ridiculous, but if it's that ridiculous, why can't you watch it? Because I have to be honest, growing up watching soap operas and things of that nature, like, oh my God, I want a relationship like that, because they always showed like it was wonderful. Not understanding that this person was sleeping with that person, this person was committing adultery, because you are young at that age. You really didn't understand it. But I'm trying to find out how that we can get back to God's principles, you know, especially for those who we say we love God. If we love him, you know, we would not put ourselves in these situations, especially even with adultery. You have men out there that's committing adultery, you know, because they feel like the grass is greener on the other side. Why don't you talk to the men and about the principles of God and how adultery and fornication is destructive? Are you there, Tim?
Yeah, I'm sorry, say it again, please. The last part.
No, I said let them know, you know, let the men know how destructive committing adultery or fornication can be.
And yeah, it's very destructive. It's almost like an antibiotic. It takes the antibiotics after a while. They no longer can have the desired effect because you build up the tolerance. And after a while, build up, you know, a stinginess, so you can't be satisfied with one person. And you have to keep jumping and jumping and jumping, and even if you try to slow down and be satisfied, you still need all that stimulation from all that hunting and new conquest. And so it is destructive if your values are to eventually be a lifelong husband. Another reason I had to take time off at 8 years to let me clear all that out of my system.
Yes.
And then I only focus on my wife, not, oh wow, her and her and her. Oh man, I'm married, but maybe if I get out the house, I can go to this that. No.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. It's like a drug. Anything of the flesh is like a drug. Say for instance, because as we know that the spirit wars against the carnal mind, and so it's really like us making choices. So if you have a person who's committing fornication, and they're continuing just doing it, of course the flesh is going to be one with it and love it. And now you have to satisfy this part of your being. It's just like someone smoking cigarettes and they keep smoking. Now it's hard for them to quit, and then you have people that commit fornication and they feel like, oh my gosh, most of them can be called nymphos, or they feel like, oh man, if I get married, then, I'm going to be able to stop this and I can be with one person. I say that's incorrect. I feel that if you get into a marriage and you still have that temptation of fornication, now you're going to get yourself in a position where you can commit adultery. Now, what would you say to a man that feels like, you know what, I can get into a relationship, I'm committing fornication, I want to quit, I want to do the right thing, and thinks that getting married is the answer? What would you tell him?
A lot of people fool themselves and do idiotic things. The dumbest thing that can be on earth is how people want to have a stag party, a bachelor party, and women are doing it too. The day before they get married, have strippers, or either get something from somebody else supposedly one last time.
Yeah.
I don't know why people play those games with something so important, something so sacred, their lives, and eventually their bank account when they have to pay all that money to go through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really ready to stop and be with one person, you have to stop and like mean it. Don't keep flirting with it.
Yes.
But people need to slow down and set their values on the values that God's word laid out as optimal for our lives. Mm-hmm. And that's really the most important thing, and stop playing games with your life, with your mind, with your heart, even like prescription medication. After a while, your body builds up a tolerance. It gets used to it. Mm-hmm. Then you have to go and take the next thing. And after a while, you get used to it, you have to take the next thing. But still, even though they're not getting the desired effect, it's still there, and they take their toll on your body. Some people are committing suicide and having all kind of problems with medication. Mm-hmm. When in reality, you're cheating yourself because you're eating bad food. You have to try to get medication and synthesize the things you're not getting in your food. If you ate better food, you can skip over that whole step of all that medicine, and the food is not addictive. Good food is good food, and it doesn't have negative side effects.
It's fun.
To make good food, you don't eat. It's full of negative side effects.
And it's funny that you said that, because that's really powerful when I look at it like this. Like you got the pharmaceuticals, and then you have, which really, like you said, or even like cocaine or pot or anything of the flesh can be overdone, because if you keep smoking it, of course you're going to want to get a bigger high. You keep taking those pills, you get to a point where I got to go to the next level. You know what I mean? And really, people don't understand your body is the temple of God. So if you're not taking care of your temple, and you're really becoming a person who's really on these drugs, or a person, people don't understand sex is the same thing. I mean, people are addicted to sex, and just like anything else, now it will take over your body, and now it's not you by the Spirit being in control, but now your flesh is controlling you into a place of destruction, So, but what would you say? I mean, because really, as I guess you said it earlier, it's about you have to really start getting these principles. How can they come back if they're out there already and they're all on these drugs, or they're committing fornication and adultery, and they got this, addictive personality going, where really at this point, there's a lot of them so far out there that it's hard for them to come back. how would you tell them the steps that they can take to really just, and it really has to be some steps, because some people, it's just like a person that's on crack. You can't just say do this, this, and this, and this. They're so far gone, they might not even understand what you're saying. So, I mean, how do we get,
It's just like anything else that you have to stop. Ozzy Osbourne was a drug addict. Ozzy Osbourne no longer uses drugs. He stopped before he killed himself. There's some other people like John Belushi and there's a number of other people, they kept going until they killed themselves. So, if you're an alcoholic, you have to stop. You have to wean yourself from it. You have to go through your withdrawals. If you're a heroin addict, you have to go through your withdrawals. You got to go through the shakes and the sweats and whatever you have to go through. And if you're overly sexually active, you have to stop.
But you have to go through your withdrawals. You have to go through your withdrawals.
That's why it's about 8 years, and I had to detox. At first it was hard, and after a while it wasn't hard at all.
There you go. That's it.
Once it's not hard at all, then I was so focused on finding the right woman, I didn't want to violate, what I had, I met somebody who was almost 50 years old. They had never eaten an orange or drank orange juice. I said, why don't you try it? It's not so bad. It's like, well, why would I do it now if I haven't done it all these years? And I would have done all that for nothing. And so they held the fact that I never want to try because I've done all these years without doing it, so I don't want to do it now. You have to get to a point where you have sustained long enough, you don't want to violate your accomplishment. It's almost like when you save money. First, they have a hard time saving money and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you start getting a certain amount of money, and you're like, oh, wow, look how much I have. I want to keep adding to it. I don't want to spend anything. And so you have to get to that point where your value system changes and you're willing to forego instant gratification for permanent, long-term satisfaction.
There you go. And I like that word, and I want to get back to that word, which you're saying, withdraw. And this is the part of the process that I tell you guys, is that when you have to cut things off in the process of making potatoes. And those cutting off those things, it's not easy. And it doesn't feel good. And a lot of times, and most times, it's a desire that you have. You want to have that sex. You want to smoke that drug. You want, it's things that you desire in your flesh that you will have to cut off, that you have to, and to cut something off, it is a process. There is going to be a withdrawing process. But at that time, because you have to have that will and that desire. And I've seen a lot of people, I've known people who had to come from alcoholism or from being a drug addict, and they had to choose, this is what I want to do, and had to go through the withdrawals, and when you went through the withdrawals, and asking God to be with you in the midst of that, because all things are possible with Christ. And when you can come out of that, and now you're on the other side, it's a beautiful thing. But trust me, anything, I mean, even women out there, if you just have to have sex and you not have people feel like, hey, this is what I have to do, or I have to test it, I need to know. Let me tell you, we all been deceived, even from the beginning, to think that's okay, and the word of God is true. And even though we knew the word, and we didn't really know it, we knew of it, because if you really know it, it's to really become it. And so a lot of us during our youth have actually had sex and been in multiple relationships with the lack of wisdom. And that's why the word talks about a person's youth is like foolishness, because they're just doing all different kind of things in a sexual way. And now the media doesn't help. So I think too, right now, what would you say is some of the things that we can do media-wise, to get the people from it? I mean, that's all they're doing. They're waking up watching, this mess, and now the kids are getting involved. I mean, what would be some of the things?
It's funny you should say that. It's really funny you should say that. I hadn't even factored that into my life. Sometimes you have to go cold turkey, you have to change your habits. Even if you're eating too many sweets, Sometimes you have to change your eating habits and start finding substitutes and different ways to feed your body and satisfy your craving without taking in the things that are messing up your life. During my 8 years of celibacy, my wife had left at the time. We went through a rough divorce. I was a single father with twin 2-year-old boys. I moved. I struggled and rebuilt. I had a TV, but I didn't have cable. And while trying to take care of my boys, all I had was cartoons and kiddie movies. And for pretty much most of that time, I wasn't actually looking. Didn't realize it was. I was busy trying to rebuild and get over the trauma and blah blah blah. But now that I think about it, I completely stopped ingesting media. I can count the time on one hand that I went to movies. I wasn't doing anything, so I really stopped with the media. I wasn't listening to music. I was just focused on, being a dad, trying to pull my life together, and trying to detox from everything I'd been through. Because I went through relationship after relationship after relationship, and then I got married because I had sex outside of marriage, got her pregnant, wanted to get married, my children were born to the family. And all that, everything I went through was my fault. And it all had sex involved with it. That's where I made up my mind. The next woman I had sex with was going to have my last name grafted onto hers. And I said, I'm not going to breathe that. And that's when I found satisfaction finally. And 46, how old was I? 56. Yeah, when I got married. Correctly.
Yes.
First marriage, I don't want to consider that a marriage. That was just me doing something.
Right.
It was horrible. It never was right. This is my first real time
being married.
Yes.
Yes.
For all the right reasons and not trying to make something out of nothing.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And what I hear through this whole message is that, in order for us to get right with God, and really, when we're getting right with God, we're getting right with ourselves, because that means that now we're starting to purge things out. We're overcoming that flesh. We're overcoming those weaknesses or those desires that opposes the word of God. And coming to the understanding when we do the right things according to the law of God, that we're really bettering our relationship, not only with God, but with our spouse, or choosing, being able to choose and know how to choose and recognize a queen or a king. So why don't you tell the audience too on that recognition? How is them to really recognize, because, there's a lot of things out there, that the wolves in sheep clothing that come, and you'll be surprised. A lot of people get tricked. A lot of people get lied to. A lot of people are not exposing who their true self is, during the whole marriage. And how important it is to be honest when you're going to marry someone, when a lot of people don't want to do that, understanding because they got baggage or they think it's going to change the other person's mind, they're not going to be with them. And then, I spoke to a few people that actually told me that those things happen, and now it's like you got to keep going. What would you tell them at that, what that they should do to recognize a good candidate for the position?
Well, you have to look at long-term value. There's the things you do when you want to have a good time. It's one thing to go to the amusement park, you go to at mountain. You want to get on the biggest, fastest roller coaster. You want to go fast. You want to swing around. You want to scream. You want to feel like, oh my God. But when you pass the park, starts like that. Like every time you had to go to the store to go shopping, or if you get a car, you want something that you don't go any pothole. You want something that's soft, comfortable, not a hard piece of plastic. Life has to stop being a thrill ride. Start to be something that you can live with on a day-to-day basis. And know you can rely on every morning when you start. It's going to take you where you want to go. When it's cold, the heaters come behind that you want to do everything you're supposed to do. That is completely different from going to Magic Mountain on the day when it's really cold. You bundle up in the cold. It's on a hard piece of plastic, and you go on a warm ride with plastic water on the jet freeze for about an hour and you dry off. That's not the great life you're supposed to be as you get old. So if you look at that equation, yes, I ran a dog, a hot chick, make this, make that, this exciting, that exciting. But you know you can't tap dance, you know she's annoying, you know she's irresponsible, you know she's seeing other people, you know she's flaky. But you do it anyway because you have some fun at that point. If you grow up, you say, I don't want to do that. I want somebody to come home to do every day, know exactly what I'm going to get. There's no wondering. I want somebody to rely on, but no. It's going to be there all the way until the end, whatever the end is. I know I've got this person until the end. That is a permanent bond. That's being like a big person. That's being grown. That's being right in God's standards for the family. That's everything it's supposed to be. And to get the best out of what God has to offer, is to give God the best of what He has to offer.
Right.
And that's your responsibility, your faith, your dedication, your respect, and just being the right person, doing what you're supposed to do, being obedient. You're obedient.
Yes.
Adherent to your cohesion to His plan and not yours.
And that is so important. Obedience. And that's what it's about. Either you're going to do those things that are righteous or you're going to continue to live in unrighteousness. And we do understand that, even though we're speaking to everyone, and there's some people who are not going to take that, accountability and do the right thing, whereas there'll be someone that it will touch their hearts, and this will be a word of truth for them right now to say, you know what, I want to do the right thing. I want God's best. If you want God's best, then you have to do it God's way, not your way. These gave you laws and commandments and statutes so that you can live them, and may not be easy for you in the beginning. Just like Tim said, it's a detox, but you would want it so bad. If you love God so much, it's like you will want to please Him, and that's why I said it's parallel. Our relationships with our spouse is the same parallel with God. It's, He wants love and respect, and He wants you to treat Him the way that you would definitely desire for Him to treat you, and He put those laws there. We are His children, to be obedient. It's just like your children in your household. It's like they have to go by the law. What Dad tells them to do, this is what you better do, when they get older and then they think they're going to be grown and tell you what to do, that's when you say, well, you need to get out of my house, right? So it's really important, like you said, if we take accountability and say, just get tired of really just compromising, and really start standing forth and saying, hey, I love God. If a man feels that, he has to commit fornication, then don't put yourself in those type of positions. I remember you said in one of the episodes that we were talking about how you don't want to put yourself in those temptation, places where if you know that you like a person or you have a problem in that situation, why go over that person's house late? Why tempt yourself? Why do those things? Am I correct?
Yeah. And, one thing that's important, if you really want to settle down, you have to detox long before you settle down. You detox before you even meet the person. If you feel a hot man, you need to be probably going to come. But you have to detox long before you meet the person. It's only fair to them and it's fair to yourself. Because then you know you're ready. And then instead of putting importance on how great your sex is, after not having it so long, but you still put these good bonds with the person.
Mm-hmm.
You've been absent so long, whatever it is, still great at that time.
Right.
And then you find that your bond is there for the right reason. And sex is not the most important part of the relationship.
Yes.
Some people marry so that they have great sex with,
Yes.
and 2 years later they couldn't stand it.
Mm-mm-mm. Yes.
Sex is not the reason to get married.
Right.
That is just a bonus that should come only with marriage because it helps you bond and also, create children. But sex is not the highlight of the marriage. Yes, some people say it tonight. But how do you really need to see?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What you need is love, and then that's going to make you sex a better place with somebody you love.
Mm.
Love somebody you sex better because there's no real function there.
Right. And
But people got it twisted. They think that sex is the most important part of the relationship.
right.
Constantly hear people saying how they can't do this, they gotta have it, sex has to be this, sex has to be that. No, sex doesn't have to be anything.
Mm-hmm.
The person has to be something that is all that.
Yes.
And that really changes the relationship. Sex is not a relationship thing. It does not work. It does not make people stay together forever. Otherwise, a whole bunch of people still together.
Did you hear what he's saying? Sex does not keep you together. Sex does not keep you together. Go ahead.
One thing I realized, everybody I had sex with, whatever number that was, I can't remember. I'm not with them.
Right.
I'm with the one that I didn't have sex with until I married her.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I will be until I die.
Yes. That's beautiful.
So, I have a logical brain. I do things chemically and I do things practically. And I'm going to show the virtue of doing it the right way because it works for me.
Right.
Just like anything else. Like you just good restaurant, I can tell you food over there is really good.
Mm-hmm.
If I drive a car on that, I'm going to say, hey, this is a great car. You can think about getting one.
Mm-hmm.
I found a way to become a happily married.
That's beautiful.
Now I'm going to say, hey, this right here
Mm-hmm.
works. I try to every kind of way you can imagine
Mm-hmm.
it works. Like this way, guess what I got?
Woo!
My way.
Woo woo! Carrot and hugs. Yes, you did. I'm telling you. I mean, just a beautiful, just exude love in her spirit, and I'm just just a beautiful example for so many women, and it's so necessary. Is Karen there so she could say something?
Yeah, she's around. I got everything I wanted.
Yes.
About people that sacrifice in the Bible
Mm-hmm.
and the things that you do and how long they spend to work wait for Rachel, and the different things you have to do to get what you're really want.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't want to sacrifice, they don't want to compromise, they just want it now. And they feel like, well, I can do it the way I want to, and then, when I get married, God will forgive me, but I got to try it out first. Is that really trusting in God?
Woo, there you go. That's it. That's the most important, is trusting in God. And I want you and Karen to talk. I know, and I want you guys to answer this question. Let's talk to them, because it's both perspectives, because I know you both will be here next week, but I just love Karen so much, and I've seen her up there, so I want her to say something. Hey, how are you? How you doing today? Or tonight, shall I say? Yes. I wanted to ask you guys this question, and you can give it both from the male and female perspective. The detox, how we're talking about, you have to detox yourself, as Timothy's saying, way before you're really trying to get in a relationship. Can you tell them, because it's not just a sex detox, but can you give the women out there, let them know what is the process of a detox to prepare yourself for your king?
Well, that's a great question. Detoxing, for me personally, from my experience, is knowing your intent when you go out with someone. So if you're going to date someone, obviously, because that's how you're going to meet your kid, if you make your intentions clear from the very beginning. I feel it's dishonest to lead any man on thinking that he can sleep with you and have a relationship with you. If that's not where your heart is, and you know you want to save yourself, you need the right one, because you're giving two different signals. So you need to tell your body to shut up and shut down, and to just listen to your heart and go within and pray to God. And that too is prayer. It's the strength. That is the strength right there to be able to detox. Because, the body's going to want it because, you have physical needs. He's handsome. He looks good. I like the way he holds
in that chemistry.
You're going to have a
Right.
you're not dead. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
The thing is, you just have to make yourself commit to your promise. You have to make a promise to yourself and commit to that promise in every sense of the word. And of course, you need prayer to help you to sustain it.
Oh, yes.
You can say one thing and, you do something that's totally counteractive of what you truly want. So that's why you have to be really firm. I think, first of all, you need to sit down, pray, get quiet, and write down on a piece of paper what you want. Envision your sins. Envision it to every detail of what you desire. Ask God to manifest it, to help bring it to pass. Ask for His assistance. What do you need to do to detox from within? You might need to learn a lesson first. You might need to learn you need to communicate better. It might be you need more patience. It might mean that you need to not get so stuck up on what you think you want opposed to what you really need. You may think you want him because he's a pretty boy, he has a great job, he's, a great around your friends, everybody talks about him, he has a great reputation, whatever the case may be. But maybe God wants you to have a God-loving, fearing man who may not be as pretty but handsome in so many other ways, not just physical beauty, because inner beauty to me is more important than physical beauty. So it's all those things you have to discern and come to realization before you can walk on that path. And then you'll see, once you detox, and it takes time, you have to take baby steps, and you make up a firm commitment and have a pact with God. Actually, it's very easy to not think about, oh, I need to go to bed with this person. No, you start thinking about, I want to be the perfect queen for my kids and be ready so that when he sees me, he doesn't think about, I want to just take her to bed. He thinks about, this is the woman that I want to spend the rest of my life with.
Think about it like memory foam. If you get one of those memory foam mattresses and you push down on it, it'll leave an imprint of where that person was. After you get off of it, let it sit there long enough, it may take a while, but it eventually comes back up and gets smooth. You have to let the imprint of the last person get off of your body.
Right, that's awesome.
You have to detox until you're a smooth, not just smooth, but you also need to make spray some disinfectant on it and let it air out. You have to get that other person off you. You can't go from body to body to body, collecting soul ties, piece to spirit, and have chemistry running around in your body. Because a woman's body takes on a man's chemistry through sex. That's a serious thing. She releases oxytocin, the man secretes in her body, and some of his DNA becomes a part of her body. And science is showing that now. People don't realize that sex is, it's a lot more invasive than
just pleasure. Than just the pleasure. Yes, you're right. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I love that.
It's a transference of energy on both parts.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It literally takes DNA in your body.
See, and you hear that, audience, is detox. You need to detox yourself. And I love what Karen's saying, shut up and, how you say it? Shut up and...
shut up and be still.
Yes, just, you got to just shut it off, and when you really know that you're ready to live these principles and do the right thing, you really have to just it's like a cold turkey. You know, it's not like we have to have sex. We're putting it before everything. And the media is doing it on purpose because it's destroying the whole earth. I mean, now you have all these sex scandals that's going on right now. That's all over the place. You know, the casting couch and how people 20 years later are talking about how they were raped, and you know what I mean? And then you have the molestation and so forth. So those of us who say, you know what, I'm done with this. You know, I want to do it God's way. And I mean, really, you know, we can't keep saying, forgive me, God, and think that's what grace is for. We have to be like, you know what? It is most important for me to live in the way that God will have me to live. And I think both of you guys, what you said was so important. I like that phone analogy that you said. You know, you gotta, you know, get back to that oneness, you know, with self and with God. And when you go into that new relationship, it's new. It's not that you're bringing and you're comparing and, you know, you looking at like this. You know what? You did the right thing. You guys did the right thing. You waited for each other. You made love each other, and you will realize, like you said, sex is not the most important. You don't stay in bed 24/7. You know, you could, you communicate, you work with deals in the household, with business and finances. I mean, there's so many things that you deal and you go together, you know what I mean? From washing dishes to, you know, putting the peanut butter in the refrigerator. There's so many things that you have to come together and mesh and understand each other's personalities. This person might like sports, this one may not, you know, but you're going in there fresh. You're going in there fresh and you fulfilled now because you're one with God, you're complete and whole in the love of God, and you're going into love instead of just going in with a big void to be loved, you know. So I love what you said. If you guys would like to talk to the audience and let them know something, you know, before we go ahead and say goodbye to everyone, could you just go ahead and say the last words of what you would like to say tonight?
Well, a lot of the principles that we shared, if you go to YouTube and type in Tim and Karen Alexander, we have a number of series of videos. We have relationship videos that are just general relationship information. It's also good for singles who are looking to settle down. And we have something called the Happy Husbands and Wives Club, where we're talking with other married couples about the positives of marriage and even some relationship advice for people who are trying to get married. We have family videos with kids. And, you know, we try to put out information where people can see it and grow from it.
Yeah.
And our experiences.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's very positive. And believe me, it's not easy. If you've not been done with it, it's not easy. So we don't want people to think that it's easy. But if you truly, truly, in your heart, want to meet that special someone to spend your life with, why not? What do you have to lose? Isn't it worth fighting for? Isn't it worth telling yourself, you know what? I can just get to know the person for who they are, experience so much with them, really know them, and then the sex is like an added bonus. It's like dessert when you get married. How hard is that? If you really, really want that type of relationship, you can try it. You have no one to blame but yourself if you decide you don't want to try it.
And at some point, if you had a choice, you have to decide, if you had a choice of 20 people in your bed over the next 20 years, or one person for the rest of your life, which one do you actually value more? You can't really have both. And you know, all these people careers and lives are literally being ruined. Kevin Spacey's life is ripped apart. He had a movie that's just about to come out on December the 21st. They're reshooting the movie and reshooting all of his parts and then replacing with a different actor. They're erasing the man. His series got canceled right in the middle of the season. They are erasing him. This is one of the top tier actors. His little wiener got him in trouble. He's gotta have it, gotta have sex, gotta touch this guy, gotta touch that guy, gotta. It destroyed his life.
Woo, there you go. And that's how many kingdoms fall. Many kingdoms fall
Harvey
because of women.
Weinstein
Yes.
destroyed his life.
Yes.
There's another guy, TK something, somebody TK.
Louis C.K.
James TK or something. I forgot his name.
Louis
Anyway,
C.K.
Huh?
Louis C.K.
Yeah, Louis C.K.
Mm-hmm.
Big comedian.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to masturbate in front of women.
Mm-hmm.
Just pull it out and start doing his thing. He wanted them to watch it.
Right.
Now, his life is going to be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Cosby's life got really difficult. If these people had not been controlled by their desire for the sexual pleasure,
Right.
guess what problems they would not have right now? This is going to cost them money. It's going to cost their reputation. Kevin Spacey very well may never work again.
Right. And Charlie Sheen, you got Charlie Sheen as well.
Nobody would touch it.
Charlie Sheen.
Anytime they rape you out of a movie and spend money for a movie that's going to come out in a month, just to keep you out of it, you are toxic. I've never heard of that happening.
Right.
He's the first.
Right. But you know what? I really believe that God is showing his people. I mean, he's letting them drop and fall. And he's exposing all this right now. And hopefully those who can stop looking at them saying, oh, and no, that's what you're doing on the same level, but you just not being a celebrity or where people can see what you're doing, because people are doing it all the time. So if you're looking at it like, you know what, these people that are supposed to have this money and celebrities, and they fall and can lose their job or lose their life, do you know that you looking at them thinking like, you know, that doesn't apply to you too? Even though you might not have what they have, but what you have, you will lose too. And most important, that you're losing most of all, rather than just your job, God is giving you opportunity, so hopefully you won't do it anymore and end up not losing your soul. Because this is what's happening.
You know what? Even more important, we look at things people are losing now.
Right.
Just get the I was about to say, their eternity within the balance.
Yes.
And as much as it hurts for Harvey Weinstein to lose his money and his reputation and his company all in a week, and his life, just all that stuff while he was married, a lot of it, completely disrespected his marriage. He lost his wife, company, his money, his reputation, and his friends in about a week.
Let me tell you.
And losing your soul is worse than that.
Hello.
To.
Hello. Yes, you're so right. And that's why I'm like, you know what? You would want to get yourself together, because this is only the physical part of what you're saying. And God said the things that's happening in heaven is the same on earth in the Lord's Prayer. Meaning that you're seeing the physical part of these people losing everything. But guess what? When you lose your soul just for a moment of pleasure, you understand? Just for pleasure, that don't last always, you know? We've got to listen and watch the sign. We got to watch and pray and understand that these things are not just happening by happenstance, but really people are now being accountable, being exposed. What they reap now is their harvest time. And really, we need to really take heed to what is going on right now and look at our lives and evaluate what we need to be doing in our relationship with God.
And you know, I don't care who you are. Look at people in the entertainment industry. They had way more fun than you will ever have. They had access to people that you can only dream about. And guess what? They're miserable.
No.
They're probably looking back saying, wow, what did I do? Why couldn't I be happy? Harvey Weinstein's wife is amazing looking. Beautiful. But what was the outcome you get that you didn't already have?
Right.
And, you know, these people are looking back saying, oh my God, I worked all these years to build this career, now it's gone. Right. And I've been spending my money like it wasn't going to stop, and now it just stopped.
Yeah.
Now they got to get their business started real quick. Their lifestyle to dry up their money.
Oh my gosh. Look at that. Look at them just falling. But you know what? Let me tell you, it's a blessing in this way. Because when you thought you had everything, the power, the position, and you were using your power, you know, and your authority in wrong, unrighteously. Now that you've fallen, now you do have a chance, you know, to really like cry out, because now you like, I don't have no toys no more. They took my wife is gone. Now who you gonna talk to? You know, you don't feel like the guy that you thought you was, you know, that you were.
And the embarrassment, because you just barking at you. Everybody did anything you wanted. He was high and mighty and powerful, caught up in himself. He was arrogant. He was a jerk. And now all of a sudden he's a public joke.
Wow.
He's the fodder of every late night talk show host. He's a joke. He has no power. People see him. You know, they're gawking at him. He went to a restaurant with a costume on, trying to hide. He's a laughing stock.
Right.
Basically, he's lost all his credibility. His power is gone.
Wow.
Because he has nothing.
And look, and that little word means a big thing.
He did it to himself, and nobody feels sorry for him.
No, it probably because
you're doing it yourself too, just at a smaller level. If you're out there just doing your thing, just a smaller level of the same thing.
Exactly. And trust me, you will. There are repercussions. No matter what level or where you are, there will be repercussions. And you know what? If you fall here, look at it as an opportunity to say, you know what? Let me get my life right while I'm here on this earth. Because if you don't get it right here, let me tell you, it's going to be a hot place that you're going to find yourself going to, and you better believe it. So if you're listening to this and it applies to you, you know, understanding that God speaks through his people. And if it's touching your heart, and you know there's things that you need to change, understand that things that's going around are very real in the spiritual realm first. Tim, would you like to say anything else?
I guess that's pretty much it. You know, just understand, reset your value system. Decide what's really important. Don't think about what you want in your bed tonight. Think about what you want for the rest of your life. It's a big difference in thinking about what you want in your bed tonight or next week and what you want for the rest of your life. If you make life decisions and not, you know, heat of lust decisions, you're going to find you're going to have a better result. Figure out what you want and conduct yourself in a way where you're worthy of it. Conduct yourself in a way where you have prepared yourself for it. And always let your intentions be known when you meet a person that could be that person. So they know how to process your action. And by showing them that you're not trying to have sex with them until you reach that plateau, that marriage plateau, either they're the right person or they're not. If they're not the right person, they're going to break and run and say they can't do it. But guess what? If you marry them, they probably can't be faithful either. But you need somebody that says you're worth it. I will wait until I marry you if that's what you have to do. And guess who's going to be disciplined after you marry them and not try to screw everybody up and down the street. My wife doesn't have to worry about me running out on her. I wasn't doing anything when she wasn't in my life.
That's so beautiful. Yes.
And people don't look at those simple realities. If somebody meets you, they're so horny, they just gotta have it. What happens when you don't feel like giving it as much? Or what happens when they get bored?
That's so true.
Overly active sex drive sounds real great, so you have to deal with it. And deal with the infidelity that's associated with it.
And it's all around
most of these perverts that is showing up right now in the entertainment industry that the media is crucifying. These are the people that they used to love. They show them up now. They're crucifying. Who would think the media would flip on Kevin Spacey?
Woo! Ain't that something? Woo! I'm telling you.
That dude.
What?
Winning all kinds of awards. He was like the dude.
No, and Weinstein, you got him. You got what?
Unusual substance. You know, but
today,
they're crucifying you, and they have no. They have no regret to tear this man down to the ground.
Let me tell. And then you know, Tim.
All because he could not control his sex drive.
Yeah, and you know too, Tim. You got Charlie Sheen for today, charged with sex, with rape, actually, with the little boy, Charlie Sheen. I'm sorry.
they charge him or accuse him?
He's been accused right now.
Accused, right. Or raping Corey Hank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a little, and that little boy died of AIDS on him. So, I mean, it's just a lot. Like you said, judgment time is here. God is exposing everything, from the casting couch. And you know what tripped me out a little bit was I thought it was like a statute of limitation for these things. These people talking about this 20, 30 years later, some of the stuff.
There's no statute of limitations in New York, but there is one in California. That's a state by state.
Right. So I didn't even know when they were talking about Bill Cosby that they could do that, But I suppose it's really a power thing, and it's people in power that's doing these things, but it's the greater power that utilize that to show us what we need to be doing as children of God. So, well, thank you, Tim. You are always awesome, and your beautiful wife as well. And I look forward to you guys together next week. I'm going to have Karen and Timothy on here, and we're going to have some great topics for you guys. You guys are the best. And like he says, go ahead, Tim, and tell them one more time about how to contact you and Karen, and so they can be a happy husband and a happy wife.
Well, if you go to YouTube and go to the Tim and Karen Alexander page, we have tons of videos, almost 300 videos up there all together, covering all kind of topics, homeschooling, life, how we met each other, what to look for, words of encouragement, words of correction. It's all up there. So, go and dig in and find some things that likely will help you if you are looking for help to take heed to what we're talking about.
Yeah, and if you're looking, or not so much looking or ready to go into a relationship, they also have things of that nature so that you can know how to prepare yourself, how to get ready, how to recognize, Happy Husband, Happy Wife Club. You definitely want to go over there and get some of that wisdom that these two that are doing. And they are examples. They're not just talking about it just to be doing something. They lived it. And so that's important. When you really want to get some information or some wisdom and be taught by someone, always be taught by the people that are actually living the life that they speak about. Again, I want to thank you guys, and I so do look forward. God's willing, we'll be here next week, same time, 7 p.m. And in between time, I guess Karen can make some mashed potatoes with parsley on top. But thank you guys, and I love you, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
Right.
Great. Thank you, Diana.
All right. As you guys can see, I'm back at Vegas. Because we have Chiquita in the house, and she's going to be coming back on Sunday, giving us our news and, our advertising promotions, if that's something that you need. And I want you guys to know, it's so important for us to detox ourselves and to get rid of those fleshly things, those desires that come against the truth and the power of God, and really start centering ourselves and really living the God life truly, not talking about it, but actually being about it. You better believe the things that's happening to these people that is around us. They are really examples. God is showing you that, those who had authority, and they used that authority against abusing their power to sleep with others because they wanted to, because they knew what they wanted and they had in their hand how they could help them, instead of genuinely doing it because of their talents. These things are being exposed like never before. And trust me, if you think that you can get away with it on your level because you're not there, if you're committing adultery or fornication or any sexual acts that are against the law of God, I guarantee you that there is a judgment time. And because I love you, I am the voice of God to make straight way the way of God. And it's important for all of us to truly be obedient to these laws and know that these laws is his love for us. He loves us, and that's why those laws are there. Understand, the temple is the body of Christ. It's the body. It is God's temple. It's not even your own temple. Stop defiling it. Stop allowing those things to go in you and destroy your life, not only on the physical level, but mostly on the eternal level, which is your spirit. Rise up and walk into the truth of God by exuding the Christ in you in every choice that you do. You understand? God is love, and his love is his laws, and we must keep them if we love him. I want to thank you for rocking with Zion. Because you know what? There's only one way to the rock, and that's Yeshua Christ. You have a blessed one, and thank you for mashing those potatoes. All right? Ciao.